Hello. Um, uh, Thank you all for having me. Uh, it's an honor to be able to share my journey with stuttering to you all, because you all are the next group. You all are the next uh, folks on the front line that are going to help empower folks like me and others that are coming up to be able to communicate as well as they can. We all love to communicate in this world, and we all have a desire to do so. And when you have a speech impediment that doesn't allow you to do that, it can be pretty frustrating. It can be pretty challenging. And so I'm really thankful that you all have chosen your passion to uh, to go help us be able to get what's in here and what's in here out, because it's probably the biggest frustration we have. My speech impediment is stuttering. What is stuttering? Stuttering is difficulty trying to communicate. And they say it can be something where it's neurological, it's possibly genetic. I have an uncle that stutters, so perhaps it is. Or it could be just developmentally onset, like it just comes on at some point. They say research shows that quite a few people stutter at some point in their journey, more males than females, which is interesting that that's the case. But that it mostly goes away at some point. But if it persists for like 3 to 6 months, then that's when you possibly have a stutter. I have not found it recently, but there was a stat that I found 6, 7, 8 years ago when I first started this transition to communicate more, that 1% of the world's population stutters the way I do, which is 24/7, 365. Like all day, every day, I stutter. I have stuttered and will continue to stutter for the rest of my life. How do I stutter? How do most people stutter? There's usually 3 ways that the stutter comes about. The first one's a block. And it's where you open up your mouth and just nothing comes out. You're just like, you really want to, um, but you're just unable to get everything out. And so you have a block. You want something to say something, and you just open up and it doesn't come out. I used to do that a lot younger. I remember there were a couple times, memories, where I opened up my mouth and like just nothing would come out. There's prolongation, right? Where you like say your name like Seth or Amanda, right? You're trying to say a word and it just takes a little bit longer to say. It's a prolongation. I would say one that's I do more than any other is I repeat. And I can repeat sounds like repetition, or I could say like I'm going to the store, right? I'll repeat words. Rarely does it happen where I repeat phrases, but it does happen. Um, so that's how most people stutter. And again, it's like, for me, it's 24/7, 365. And so that's pretty much what stuttering is. There's no known cause and there's no known cure. And I personally have a problem with the word cure. Like, I don't think stuttering needs to be cured. I think we all speak differently and we all communicate differently. And it doesn't need cured. All right. So that's pretty much a brief overview of what stuttering is. Quick little side note. Whoever came up with the word stutter needs to have like a strong talking to, because the word stutter is really hard for stutterers to say. And so it's like, couldn't you pick a word with softer consonants or softer stuff? Because like when I say stutter, it could be stutter, you know. It happens a lot. So I've prepared a few topics that I'd like to share with you all. We've just gone over what a brief overview of what stuttering is for most people. Here's what I experience when I stutter. If it just comes up in the moment, I can sense it, right? I can sense the stutter coming. And if I can sense it in enough time, then I can put together a strategy for how to get the word out, whether it's, whether I just need to take time to breathe a little bit more, whether I just need to pause, whether I need to just, however, whatever strategy I got to take to do that. Maybe it's shifting for another word that sort of means the same thing but doesn't quite mean exactly what I want it to mean. So that is that's if it happens in the moment. Like, I can really get myself out of it pretty quickly on most days. If I have to stand up in front of folks and speak, then the process maybe even starts the night before, where I start to feel a certain type of way. They say anxiety and excitement are the same feeling. It's just when you're anxious, you fear a negative outcome, and when you're excited, you're looking forward to a positive outcome. And so for me, there's a lot of anxiety because there's a negative outcome coming. I'm going to stand up in front of everybody and I'm going to stutter, and I'm going to stutter hard, and I'm going to stutter often, and I'm going to stutter long. And I fear, and I think other people fear, that there's a negative connotation that comes with stuttering. And so I'm about to stand up here and show you what's wrong with me. And there's a lot of vulnerability that's in that, and it's difficult. You're also trying as hard as you can to articulate what's in here and what's in here, and it's just not going to come out right. It's not going to come out with the same feeling. It's not going to come out with the same emotions. It's not going to come out with the same, just the same impact, desired impact that we want to have. And it's frustrating because when you get up there and you start to speak, you only have so much mental brain power. And public speaking is arguably people's number one greatest fear anyway. And so, you're already afraid to speak in front of others because people are judging you for what it is that you're trying to say. But you're also, like, in a sense, showing what's not normal, what's abnormal. And that can be a tough pill to swallow. And so you're up there and you're trying to think on your feet, and you're trying to communicate your points, your themes, your topics, your emotions. And because you're so nervous, because there's so much anxiety and excitement going on, and as I said, you only have so much brain power. And so I have found or feared that I have to spend so much brain power just making sure that the words come out that I don't have enough brain power to think, feel, and articulate as well as I can, to think on my feet, to adapt, to do a lot of those things. And so I know that's coming. So the night before, like, I start to feel all that. I start to sense that. The mornings leading up to a speech, man, like, it just comes on, and it can be so intense, and it can be so, like, I don't know how many of you all have ever been on a roller coaster or have bungee jumped or even jumped out of an airplane. I've done all those things, and that same feeling when you're about to jump out at 14,000 feet is the feeling you get when you're trying to get up to speak. Like, it's overwhelming. It's intense. And so you feel that coming up, and you try to find ways. I try to find ways I can to be able to work around that, whether it's go over my speech so many times that it's not going to come out. I write the speech, I outline the speech, I write the speech, I edit the speech, I say the speech a few times, and then I still get up there and stutter. And so when you're up there in front of people and you're having to speak, you have such anxiety and adrenaline running through your body that sometimes your hands will just shake, they'll tremble. My left knee will shake a good bit, and so I've worn baggy dress pants because I don't want to see my knees just going like this. And so you get up there and you say it, and you get through what you got to go through. And when you're done, it's never, you never feel just like, man, I nailed it. There was one time that I felt like I nailed a speech that I had. But then there were other times most of the times where you go into it feeling great, and you're given a time crunch. Like, you can only share this much in 5 minutes. You're like, it may take me 5 minutes to say a couple sentences, And so that's a bit of a struggle, because afterwards you never really feel good about what it is that you've done. And you feel like you've left communication out on the table that you would love to share with people. And you feel like there's just so much in here that you want to share with the world, but you just can't do it. And so, what else do I experience when I'm stuttering? I experience a little bit of shame, a little bit of frustration, a little bit of son of a, and that happens. But then there's a moment where it's almost freeing too, because you've stuttered, you're trying, nothing's coming out, nothing's coming out, and you just pause, take a deep breath, and then you ease right back into it. You know? And so, because you've already stuttered. So it's freeing like a little bit of that. So that's what I experience right now when I stutter. Couple other questions, like what is the psychological impact of my stutter? Is that like I feel like I'm constantly living in a reality where I'm never able to really share all of me with anyone because, or not with anyone, with people who aren't close to me. Like there's some folks who are so close to me, man, I just never stutter around them. And so I don't know if it's unconditional love that I feel from those folks, or I'm just have dropped every guard I've had from them, and so when I do that, stuttering comes out, or is it just what happened? No. So you spend time living in a world where you just want to share, and you want to share authentically, and you want to share genuinely, but you can never do it. And so that's frustrating. You always feel like you're holding back. You feel like you're letting folks down because you want to. I mean, some of the times, like, you can say something that can help someone, but you can't get it out. And so, like, I've cost myself an opportunity to strengthen a friendship or strengthen a relationship because, like, you can't get it out. And so there's a lot of that happening in there. And so the psychological impact has been one where you're just constantly in a state of frustration at times, you know. But that's just like the negative side. That leads me into like, there's also a very positive psychological impact to stuttering too. And that sort of has transformed myself in the last close to 10 years. So like my 30s would be characterized as a decade of me learning how to stand up and speak and own my stuttering. And so when I was 30, I still remember the moment that this started happening. When I was 30, I returned to college. Like I went to college, did not do well the first time around, left, went to the workforce, and then came back. Here's the other thing that just woke something about stuttering. I stutter more when I'm worried that you're going to judge me for something I've said or something that I've done and something that I've shared. And so I also need to just get to a point where I'm worthy of being me, completely worthy of being me, so that way I don't have to worry about that, because I don't disappoint myself necessarily, or I can handle the disappointment of myself. All right, so I'm 30, I'm at college, and I'm in a big class, and like I went to college, didn't do well, went out into the workforce and got like 5.5 years of practical good work experience, and now I'm back in college learning the theory behind sport management. I was an athletic director at a YMCA. Now I'm back in college, and I'm learning the theory behind all that. And so I remember I was in the class, the legal and regulatory environment of business, like, and it's a critical component to learning how to be in any business is how business has been shaped through laws. And so the professor was, and what was cool about it was the professor was born with like half an arm. And so he's standing up in there teaching, and he's asking questions. And I had been sitting there for a month or so with answers and just afraid to share. And I just said, screw it one day, and just realized that if I don't stand up right now and speak, then I'm going to let my stuttering hold me back, and I can't do that anymore. And so I stood up and I stuttered my way through the answer and sat back down, and I risked all laughs, jokes, judgments, all that stuff that stutterers have in their mind as they think about when they're trying to communicate or have experience, right? Because I've experienced a lot of that. And I just started to share. And I just kept doing it more and more and more and more. And it's become a passion of mine. Around 31, 32, I came across like Eric Thomas, who's a motivational speaker, and just saw the way that he spoke. And I said, I want to speak like that one of these days. And so I've just kept going, and the more success I had, the more times that I risked standing up and speaking in front of others, then the better I felt about myself. And then I started on a journey where I started to realize who I was, and started to really like, who is Seth? Like, what are the 4 things that, or the 5 things that I am? And it started with just stuttering. I gave a speech to the summer school at Fork Union, and I wanted to teach them about this concept that stuttering taught me. And the concept is the power of perception. Power is defined by your ability to have an effect on someone or something. If you can do that, you have power. Perception is the way you think about or view someone or something. So the power of perception becomes your ability to have an effect on the way you think about or view someone or something. So I have the power to change my perception. And how that came about is I was on some random website and said that the best therapy for stuttering is to just change the way you think about it. And I'm just recording, like it's not for anything. This is just practice.
All right, just making sure.
Yeah, it's just practice. Like, you're good. And so the best therapy is to just change the way you think about it, and to go from a point to where you're like ashamed of it to where you're proud of it. And so I started to think, like, what has stuttering taught me? You know, and what I've come to realize is that stuttering is with me because it's with me 24/7, 365. It has shaped every aspect of my personality, whether I like it or not, whether I want to admit it or not, whether I'm willing to accept some of it or not. Stuttering has shaped every bit of my personality because it's with me constantly. The same way that I'm left-handed, right? I'm left-handed. Like, it has shaped who I am, how I write, how I do all that stuff, you know. And so I've settled on like 4 things that stuttering has taught me. And these are pretty much, like, right now, they're my 4 core values of who I am as a human being. Number one, stuttering has taught me about competition. I am hyper competitive, right? I have some stories where I've started competitions against people who have no idea they're in a competition with me. And there's no way for those people or myself to even know whether or not I've won the competition. But I just have to compete. I once started a competition against the sun in Nicaragua. like the sun in Central America is not going to be too hot for me. I'm going to beat the sun. Stupid. It's stupid to compete against all these other people, because the ultimate competition is against yourself. Are you better in this moment than your previous moment? And what are you doing in this moment to be better in the next moment? That's the ultimate competition. It's not against anybody else. It's just against yourself. How can you become the best version of yourself? And stuttering taught me that, because I'm in a constant competition with myself to be able to speak. My body, for some reason, is designed to make verbal communication difficult. And so to make verbal communication difficult. And so I have to compete against myself to be able to get words out. The second thing that it taught me is the value of the spoken word. Words the right words can lift people to become better than they ever thought that they could be, and the wrong words can keep them from feeling good about themselves. And so the power of the spoken word is something that I highly value. And I love poetry. I love rap music, because I think rap music is arguably the ultimate form of music out there for me, because of the amount of words being said. And if it's a good rap song, because there's some really crappy ones out there, but if it's a good one, how much you can communicate in one song. I just think it's incredible. And so don't ever underestimate the power of words. Now, when I'm able to communicate a word or a phrase, a sentence, a speech to someone, and it just comes out and it flows out, man, there's so much joy in it. And the journey to be able to speak the way that I am today has been a difficult one, and there's been a lot of tears. There's been a lot of letdowns, a lot of setbacks, a lot of frustration, a lot of feeling humiliated. And so when that word comes out, there's such joy, And so because you're constantly, as I said before, you're constantly feeling like you're living in this realm where you can't fully communicate and articulate and be present with others in the way that you want to be, then those moments when it comes, you really got to value those. And so for me, the other thing that stuttering has taught me is how to pursue joy and how to feel joy. One of the things that I'm sort of known for in a lot of the circles is my laugh, right? My laugh is if you're in a room with 300 people, you will hear me laugh no matter where you're at in that spot, right? And I will laugh out loud when other people are afraid to laugh, because screw it, right? Moments of joy are hard to come by. Be in those moments, laugh and laugh hard, really laugh hard. And so, there's a little exercise we can do that I want us to do before we like cut this whole thing off. It's called a joy breathing exercise that is really great. I'm gonna make your teachers allow us all to do that through Zoom. Fourth thing that it taught me, the fourth thing is emotional intelligence. I only stutter around other people. I don't stutter by myself. I don't. And so, um, I have had to really get into my feelings, right? And really understand why it is that I'm stuttering, because it's seemingly emotional why I stutter and how I stutter. And so I've had to really become self-aware. I've had to do a lot of deep down digging into me. I've had to look myself in the mirror and admit things that most people are afraid to admit, because if I don't, then I'm not going to be able to stutter. I'm not going to be able to communicate without a stutter. And so I really had to understand what emotional intelligence is and how I can apply it to myself. And because I've been able to do that, then I feel like I'm able to understand others well, and I'm able to communicate with others well, and I'm able to build others up. And so, so to answer the question, what is the psychological impact of my stutter? It's basically transformational. I was able to transform who I was, someone who was ashamed and someone who really struggled a lot with stuttering, to then changing the way that I perceived it and using it for good and learning to love it. And so I'm a big quote guy, the spoken word. I'm a big quote guy. And a quote that I've been living by for the last couple of years is, fall in love with your life and then invite others to join your journey. And so you have to fall in love with every aspect of your life, the good, the bad, the indifferent. Like, you have to fall in love with all of it, not just fall in love with the good parts. And falling in love with the indifferent parts or the bad parts is like not easy, but it's absolutely critical to being able to find meaning and joy in this world. And so the power of transformation has been huge. And again, we got about, looks like 6.5 minutes left. And so I wanted to open it up for questions for if anyone wanted to hop on a Zoom and just ask a question. I'll try to answer some of those there. And then either before we go to your teachers, or maybe when we're about to close this thing out, like, let's do the joy breathing challenge. All right. Thank you.